I'm going to make a request of you today that I've never made in all my years as a pulpit rabbi. On all the Rosh Hashanahs until now, I have ended the service on this day by wishing you a Shana Tova and by sending you out on a note of joy. This year, I am sending you out on a note of hopefulness by asking you to consider a special request. I ask you to hear me well and take this request very seriously. Without exaggeration, I believe that the request I'm going to make of you today is nothing less than a matter of life and death for you and for me and for all those whom we love. I'm going to ask you with all the strength and energy that I possess to promise that until such time as scientists tell us that it is no longer necessary to do so, that you will not step outside your house without wearing a mask. For many, it's a nuisance to wear a mask. The older you are, the greater the necessity. For the stakes get higher as you get older if stricken with COVID-19. I know that a mask makes you sweat or perhaps feel uncomfortable. It blocks out half your face so that the people you meet on the street may not recognize you, which can be unsettling. And yet, I want to encourage you to wear a mask because it is a mitzvah of the greatest importance. And that if God forbid you don't, you may endanger your life, my life, and the lives of those whom you love. There are many people in this country who do not take the wearing of a mask seriously. Some see the mask as a political symbol, as our president refuses to wear one. I guess to some it symbolizes some restriction of personal freedom, which it does. It certainly does restrict the freedom to walk outside without thinking about COVID-19. Some don't believe what the scientists say about how we live in an interconnected world, or as my colleague, Rabbi Jack Reamer says, in a world in which what you exhale, I inhale, and what I exhale, you inhale. But it's true, and therefore, just as no one in this room would drive through a crowded street at full speed, and no one here would walk down the street playing with a loaded gun in the same way, I would ask you with the greatest of respect that you not walk down the street without wearing a mask. The reason that I make this request of you today is because of something I read that shocked me and that made me realize how frivolous and irresponsible some of us are with our own lives and the lives of those around us. A friend went to the supermarket one day in order to buy some groceries, and then he walked back to his car carrying the things he had purchased. On the way back to his car, he passed one man who was a member of his congregation who was wearing his face mask around his neck as if it were a scarf. It covered his neck, but not his mouth and not his nose. And just a few steps later, he met a woman who he knows who was wearing her mask around her hand, as if it were a bracelet. And then, as he got closer to his car, he saw a number of people who were not wearing masks at all. And this was all in one visit to the supermarket. And that was the moment a light went off in his head when he realized that no matter how conscientiously he wears his mask, it will do him no good if those around him do not wear their masks correctly and consistently. There are two mitzvahs that you violate each time you walk out of your house without wearing a mask. It's a Jewish legal fact, just like the laws of kashrut or Shabbat. I am not God's assistant, but I believe that these two mitzvahs are just as important, if not more important, than keeping Shabbos or keeping kosher or even fasting on Yom Kippur. The first mitzvah is Ushmartem et nafshotechem. It's a mitzvah found in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, that you are supposed to guard your own life. That is the Jewish value of why a person should not smoke. That is the Jewish reason why we should not eat to excess and become overweight. That is the halachic reason why we should refrain from drinking alcohol to excess. We do these things because, according to the Torah, it's a mitzvah to guard your health. The second mitzvah that is found in the Torah is the commandment not to hurt another person. I'm sure that most of the people you know and I know would not strike another person with their fist. I am sure that most of the people you and I know would never kick another person with their foot. But most of us do not realize that by not wearing a mask, we can do more harm to the people around us than we can ever do with our fists or our feet. This is a scientific fact in the age of coronavirus. There was a lawyer who lived in New Rochelle, which is a suburb near New York City. This man went to China on behalf of one of his clients, and he negotiated a deal with a company in Wuhan, which is one of the biggest cities in all of China. And then this man flew to Beijing and boarded a plane there that was headed for New York. And he happened to take a seat next to a man who coughed and sneezed many times during the trip. When he got home from his trip, he felt alert and energetic because he was still on Chinese time. And so he drove his youngest son to the SAR Academy, which is a Jewish day school in Riverdale. And then he drove his oldest son to Yeshiva University, which is located in Upper Manhattan. And as a result, within 48 hours, both of these schools had to be closed. Because even though the students in these two schools never met this man, they sat in classrooms together with his sons, and they ate their lunches in the same cafeterias with them. And so they caught the coronavirus from them. That Shabbat, this lawyer and his wife gave a kiddush for all the members of their shul in honor of his return from China. And as a result of that kiddush, the entire synagogue was closed down completely for 4 months. No services, no meetings were allowed to be held there. And as a result of that kiddush, every person who lived within a mile around that synagogue was required to stay home in quarantine. And the National Guard had to be brought in to provide them with food, for no one else was allowed to go inside their homes. And as a result of this man's visit to China, and because of the person whom he happened to sit to next to on a plane, a great many people who were with him on that flight, or who stood next to him at the baggage section of the airport while they waited for their luggage to arrive, took the virus with them when they flew home to the cities in which they lived all around the country. Why do I tell you this story, which many of you may know well? Because the lesson that we must learn from it is that the virus needs no passport to get aboard a plane, and the virus knows no borders when it is carried off a plane. No one knows how many people this one person infected, and no one knows to how many cities these people took the virus with them when they left the airport. And I retell this story not because I want to frighten you, and I certainly don't want to depress you. God forbid. I want you to realize that when you set foot outside your home in this new year, you carry your life and mine and the lives of all those whom you love with you. And therefore, this is my request to you as we begin the new year. Make a promise to God that for as long as it is necessary, you will guard your life. Make it your mission to guard the lives of those whom you love and those whom you meet on the way by wearing a face mask whenever you set foot out of your house, when you rise in the morning and return to lie down at night. Wearing a mask is like an act of kindness of caring for the needy or clothing the naked. And what acts of kindness are greater than those? Let me finish by teaching you a bracha, a blessing, just like the blessing over bread and wine. I hope you will say this blessing, this bracha, each time you put on your mask and each time you sanitize your hands. It is a bracha that I learned from Rabbi Michael Knopf, and I share it with you today because I believe that if you learn to say it when you do these acts, it will remind you that these are not simply acts of hygiene. They are mitzvot. The blessing is, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al shmirat haguf. Will you join me now with reciting this blessing phrase by phrase? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al shmirat haguf. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy by means of your commandments, who has commanded us to guard bodies. Amen. By saying God has commanded us to guard bodies, this includes our bodies and the bodies of all those around us. It is a fitting blessing to make as we, with hope and confidence, head into the new year. And may we all have a good and safe year, 5,781. And to this we can once again say, Amen.